Part 1: The Invisible War Inside Your Head. The Hook. Have you ever sat down in a quiet room, closed your eyes, and tried to just stop thinking for 60 seconds? If you have ever tried this simple experiment, you already know the terrifying truth. Your mind is not a peaceful sanctuary. It is a chaotic, loud, and completely unmanageable battlefield. The moment you try to find a single second of silence, a massive tidal wave of random thoughts comes crashing down on your consciousness. You start remembering an awkward conversation you had 5 years ago with a stranger. You start worrying about whether your boss liked the email you sent 2 hours ago. You start feeling intense anxiety about an imaginary financial crisis that hasn't even happened yet. You begin replaying mistakes, predicting disasters, and judging your own worth based on a chaotic stream of internal noise. This is the hidden tragedy of modern human existence. We live in a world where we are constantly told to train our bodies, upgrade our careers, optimize our diets, and accumulate material wealth. But almost nobody teaches us how to manage the single most powerful tool we possess, our own mind. We go through life completely at the mercy of whatever random, emotional, or destructive thought decides to pop into our heads. We think that because a thought exists inside our brain, it must be true, it must be important, and we must give it our full attention. But what if I told you that 99% of the very thoughts you think every single day are completely useless? What if I told you that your constant stress, your chronic procrastination, your relationship anxieties, and your creative blocks are not caused by external circumstances, but by your complete inability to think straight? This is the core premise of Darius Foroux' legendary book, Think Straight, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. In this comprehensive, word-by-word structural breakdown, we are going to explore a radical philosophical framework called pragmatism. We are going to shatter the dangerous illusion of overthinking, learn how to separate objective facts from destructive internal assumptions, and build an unshakable filter that allows you to instantly delete useless mental static. If you are exhausted from being a passive hostage to your own mind, and you are ready to transform your brain from a chaotic storm into a precise, action-oriented execution engine, open your mind. This is not just a book summary. This is the ultimate blueprint for absolute mental mastery and inner calm. Let us begin the journey into clarity. Part 2: You are not your thoughts. The core philosophy. To begin thinking straight, you must first understand a profound psychological boundary line. You must realize once and for all that you are not your thoughts. Most people operate on the false assumption that their mind and their identity are the exact same thing. They believe that if their mind generates a thought of fear, it means they are a cowardly person. If their mind generates a thought of deep insecurity, they believe it means they are inherently inadequate. This complete lack of separation between the self and the mind is the root cause of almost all human psychological suffering. Darius Foroux introduces us to the profound work of William James, the legendary 19th-century American psychologist and philosopher who is widely considered the father of pragmatism. William James suffered from severe, crippling depression and anxiety for a massive portion of his early life. He spent years feeling completely trapped by his own dark, destructive thoughts, believing he had absolutely no control over his mental destiny. He felt like a leaf being blown around violently by a chaotic internal wind. But one day, after reaching absolute rock bottom, James experienced a massive intellectual breakthrough. He realized that while he could not always control the initial, spontaneous thoughts that popped into his consciousness from the dark depths of his subconscious mind, he possessed the absolute free will to decide which thoughts he would focus his conscious attention on. He realized that the human mind is like a massive, multi-lane highway. You cannot stop cars from driving onto the highway, but you don't have to jump into the passenger seat of every single car that passes by. You can simply sit on the side of the road, watch the cars pass, and choose to only get into the vehicles that are taking you exactly where you want to go. This single realization saved William James's life, and it forms the absolute baseline of thinking straight. Thinking straight does not mean reaching a state of mystical perfection where you never experience fear, doubt, anger, or worry. That is completely impossible. Your brain is a biological machine designed for survival, and it will always generate random thoughts to alert you to potential dangers. Thinking straight means developing the high-level ability to observe those thoughts objectively, recognize them for what they truly are, just random configurations of biological energy, and consciously decide whether they are useful or useless to your life. Your thoughts only have power over your reality if you choose to believe them. The moment you stop feeding a useless thought with your conscious attention, it instantly loses its energy and vanishes back into the nothingness from which it came. Part 3. The crushing tragedy of mental overload. We live in the information age, which should theoretically make us the smartest, most productive generation in human history. We have the entire collective knowledge of humanity sitting in our pockets, accessible in less than 2 seconds. But instead of becoming clear-minded, strategic thinkers, we have become a society of deeply overwhelmed, anxious, and paralyzed overthinkers. We suffer from a severe, chronic condition known as mental overload. Think about how you start your typical day. The very moment you open your eyes in the morning, before your brain has even fully woken up, you reach for your smartphone. In less than 5 minutes, you consume a massive influx of external data. You read breaking news about a global conflict, you look at a stressful email from a colleague, you scroll through social media feeds showing the perfectly curated, hyper-successful lives of old acquaintances, and you watch short videos filled with loud, chaotic noises. By the time you get out of bed, your mind is already stuffed to the absolute brim with other people's opinions, anxieties, goals, and problems. Your brain's processing capacity is completely exhausted before your workday has even started. This constant consumption of unstructured information creates a state of perpetual mental clutter. Your mind becomes like a cluttered computer desktop with 100 different applications running simultaneously in the background. The system slows down, the battery drains rapidly, and the computer eventually freezes up completely. When your mind is cluttered with mental overload, you lose the ability to make fast, effective decisions. You enter a state of analysis paralysis. If you want to start a new business, you spend months analyzing every single potential failure point, reading endless articles, and debating strategies until you are so overwhelmed by fear that you take zero action. If you want to improve a relationship, you overanalyze every single word, gesture, or text message, creating imaginary problems out of absolute thin air. Overthinking is not a sign of deep intelligence. It is a sign of extreme mental laziness. It is the act of letting your brain run around in continuous, unproductive circles because you lack the discipline to stop the loop and focus on execution. The overthinker feels like they are doing valuable work because they are expending a massive amount of mental energy, but in reality, they are staying in the exact same place. True thinking is structured, purposeful, and always leads to a concrete real-world outcome. Anything else is just noise that is slowly destroying your ability to live a happy, effective life. Part 4. The pragmatic filter: useful versus useless thoughts. To clean up your internal environment and protect your brain from mental overload, you must install an unshakable mental gatekeeper. Darius Foroux provides us with an incredibly sharp, simple tool to achieve this: the pragmatic filter. This filter requires you to relentlessly divide every single thought that enters your head into 2 distinct categories: useful thoughts and useless thoughts. There is absolutely no middle ground. Let's define these 2 categories with absolute precision. A thought is useful if, and only if, it fulfills one of 2 specific criteria. First, it is a thought aimed at solving a concrete, actionable problem. Second, it is a thought aimed at deeply understanding an important piece of knowledge that you can use to improve your life, your business, your health, or your relationships. That is it. If a thought does not actively solve a real problem or build actionable understanding, it is completely useless. Let's look at some clear, everyday examples to see how this filter operates in the real world. Imagine you are driving your car to an important job interview, and you suddenly get stuck in a massive, stagnant traffic jam. Your mind immediately starts racing, generating a storm of thoughts. This is terrible. Why does this always happen to me? The city planning is awful. If I'm late, I won't get the job, and my entire career will be ruined. I am a complete failure. Let's run these thoughts through the pragmatic filter. Can these angry thoughts clear the traffic? No. Can worrying about the interview change the physical position of the cars ahead of you? No. Therefore, these thoughts are 100% useless. They solve zero problems and build zero understanding. They are simply draining your energy, clouding your judgment, and spiking your stress levels. A straight thinker would instantly recognize this, label the thoughts as useless, and immediately pivot to a useful thought. Okay, I cannot control the traffic. What can I control? I can use my phone safely to call the interviewer, explain the situation calmly, and reschedule if necessary. Or I can use this unexpected time to listen to an educational book or practice my interview answers out loud. This is the difference between a mind that is controlled by chaos and a mind that thinks straight. Darius Foroux estimates that 99% of our thoughts fall squarely into the useless category. We spend our precious mental energy complaining about the weather, gossiping about celebrities, judging the choices of strangers on the internet, replaying historical arguments in our head, and crying over spilled milk. We cannot change the past, and we cannot control the vast majority of future external events. The only thing we truly own is the present moment and our current choices. By applying the pragmatic filter with absolute, ruthless discipline, you learn to instantly cut off the supply of energy to useless thoughts. You stop wasting your brainpower on mental static, saving your cognitive energy for things that actually move your life forward. Part 5. The core law of pragmatism. True is what works. To truly master the art of thinking straight, we must dive deeper into the core philosophical law of pragmatism. Most traditional philosophies spend centuries debating abstract, theoretical concepts of absolute truth. They ask massive, unanswerable questions like, what is the ultimate meaning of life? Or, what is the absolute metaphysical nature of reality? Pragmatism completely bypasses these endless, circular debates by offering a highly practical, revolutionary definition of truth. The fundamental law of pragmatism states, true is what works. An idea, a concept, a belief, or a strategy is only true and valuable if it yields tangible, positive, and useful results in the physical reality of your practical life. If an idea does not work in practice, if it makes your life more miserable, more chaotic, or less effective, it is functionally false for you and should be instantly discarded. Think about how many rigid, outdated beliefs you carry around in your head simply because society, your parents, or your culture told you they were true. You might believe that you must work 80 hours a week and sacrifice your physical health to be considered a successful person. You might believe that you must stay in a toxic, draining friendship because you have known that person for a long time. You might believe that you are not creative because a teacher criticized the drawing you made when you were 10 years old. A pragmatic straight thinker looks at these beliefs and asks one simple question: is this belief working for my life right now? Does believing that I am uncreative help me build a better career? No. Does working 80 hours a week at the cost of my health bring me true happiness and peace? No. Therefore, those beliefs do not work, and because they do not work, they are discarded. Pragmatism frees you from the heavy burden of having to conform to social conventions or abstract rules. It gives you the absolute intellectual freedom to design your own operational blueprint based entirely on real-world feedback. If a specific morning routine makes you feel focused and energized, keep doing it, it is true for you. If a particular business strategy consistently generates revenue and serves your customers honestly, double down on it, it works. Stop looking for external validation or permission from world theories. Look at the concrete data of your own life. Measure your success by your inner peace, your physical health, your financial stability, and the quality of your relationships. True is what works, and what works is the only thing worth thinking about. Part 6. The illusion of knowledge. Separating facts from assumptions. One of the greatest enemies of straight thinking is our natural human tendency to mistake our personal assumptions, interpretations, and emotional biases for absolute, objective facts. We live under the constant illusion of knowledge, believing we see the world exactly as it is, when in reality, we see the world through a highly distorted lens of personal insecurity and mental programming. Darius Foroux challenges us to become psychological detectives who constantly investigate the validity of their own thoughts. You must learn to separate objective facts from subjective assumptions with absolute precision. An objective fact is something that can be verified with concrete, undeniable evidence. It is neutral, observable, and completely free of emotional flavor. An assumption, on the other hand, is an interpretation that your mind creates to fill in the blanks of a situation. It is driven entirely by your past experiences, your fears, and your current emotional state. Let's look at a classic workplace scenario to see how easily this illusion of knowledge can completely hijack your sanity. Imagine you walk into the office kitchen in the morning, and you see your manager standing by the coffee machine. You smile, wave, and say, "Good morning." Your manager doesn't look at you, doesn't say a word, grabs their coffee cup, and walks straight past you out of the room. If your mind is untrained, the overthinking loop will ignite instantly. Your brain will generate a massive stream of assumptions. Wow, they completely ignored me. They must be furious with the report I submitted yesterday. I knew I made a mistake on page 4. They are probably planning to fire me next week. I need to start looking for another job. My entire career is in jeopardy. By the time you sit down at your desk, your heart is racing, your hands are sweating, and you are trapped in a state of absolute panic. Now let's step back and analyze this situation through the lens of straight thinking. What is the actual, objective fact of this scenario? The single, verifiable fact is this: your manager walked out of the kitchen without speaking. That is it. Everything else, the anger, the report mistake, the plan to fire you, is a pure, unverified assumption engineered entirely by your internal insecurities. The reality could be 100 different things that have absolutely nothing to do with you. Your manager might have been suffering from a severe, blinding migraine. They might have been deeply distracted by a serious personal family emergency. They might have simply had their wireless earbuds in, hidden beneath their hair, listening to an intense corporate briefing. By mistaking your assumption for a fact, you spend hours suffering over a fictional story that your own brain invented. Straight thinkers refuse to react to interpretations. They hold their judgment, focus entirely on verifiable facts, and if a situation requires clarity, they seek out direct evidence instead of playing a destructive game of mental gymnastics. Part 7. Smart thinking is slow thinking destroying knee-jerk reactions. In our fast-paced, modern society, we are heavily conditioned to praise speed above everything else. We admire the person who answers questions instantly, the executive who makes rapid-fire corporate decisions, and the public figure who has an immediate, witty response to every single event on social media. We are taught to believe that fast thinking is a sign of high intelligence and absolute confidence. But the philosophy of straight thinking reveals the exact opposite. Smart thinking is almost always slow thinking. When you look closely at your first, immediate reaction to any sudden event, challenge, or piece of bad news, you will realize that your first reaction is rarely logical. It is an emotional, survival-driven knee-jerk response generated by your ancient, primitive brain. The amygdala, the emotional alarm center of your brain, cares absolutely nothing about objective truth, long-term strategic success, or maintaining peaceful relationships. It only cares about immediate survival, defense, and self-preservation. When someone criticizes your work, your immediate knee-jerk reaction is to become highly defensive, strike back with an insult, or blame someone else. When the stock market drops, your immediate reaction is to panic, sell your investments at a massive loss, and hide your money under a mattress. When a project faces an unexpected delay, your immediate reaction is to scream, get frustrated, and throw your hands up in despair. These rapid, unfiltered responses are the absolute opposite of straight thinking. They are a form of mental slavery, showing that you are entirely controlled by your temporary emotional impulses. To think straight, you must develop the cognitive discipline to install a strategic pause between an external stimulus and your internal response. Viktor Frankl, the legendary psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, beautifully wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." The moment bad news arrives, or someone provokes you, you must learn to step into that space. Do not speak. Do not send that angry email. Do not make that sudden financial transaction. Take a deep breath, step away from the situation, and let the initial emotional storm pass completely over you. Acknowledge the anger or fear without judging it, and say to yourself, "My mind is currently feeling a wave of panic, but I am going to wait until my logical brain takes back the wheel." Give yourself 24 hours, or at least a few hours of quiet contemplation, before you formulate your ultimate strategy. Use that slow, deliberate time to analyze the facts, apply the pragmatic filter, look at alternative solutions, and calculate the long-term consequences of your actions. When you slow down your thinking, you transition from a passive, reactive creature into a calm, proactive strategist. You will find that the best answer is almost never the first answer that jumps into your head. Part 8. Life is not a straight line. Embracing nonlinear reality. One of the primary reasons people find themselves trapped in endless loops of anxiety, frustration, and overthinking is because they are operating on a fundamentally flawed mental blueprint. They believe that life is a clean, predictable, linear progression. They think that if they follow a specific set of traditional steps, go to school, get a degree, find a secure job, work hard, buy a house, everything will move smoothly from point A to point B without a single disruption. But the real world completely shatters this linear fantasy. Reality is chaotic, unpredictable, dynamic, and intensely nonlinear. You can do everything right, work 60 hours a week for years, and your company can suddenly go bankrupt due to a global economic shift. You can invest all your savings into a highly secure market, and a black swan event can drop its value overnight. You can plan a perfect project timeline, and a key partner can walk away at the final second, leaving you completely stranded. When a linear thinker faces these unexpected disruptions, their entire mental architecture collapses. They fall into a deep pit of overthinking, asking circular, useless questions. Why is this happening to me? I followed all the rules, this isn't fair. Why can't things just go according to my plan? They become bitter, paralyzed, and completely unable to adapt to the new terrain of reality. A pragmatic straight thinker looks at the world with complete realism. They accept, deep in their core, that life is inherently nonlinear. They know that achieving any major goal, whether it is building a massive fortune, writing a masterpiece book, or maintaining a healthy relationship, involves continuous detours, unexpected failures, and sudden course corrections. They do not view a failure or a sudden roadblock as a cosmic disaster or a sign of personal inadequacy. They view it simply as an objective change in market conditions. When a roadblock appears, the straight thinker doesn't waste a single second complaining about why the obstacle shouldn't be there. They look at the new landscape and say, "Okay, the old path to my goal is completely closed. The terrain has changed. What are my alternative options right now? How can I pivot my strategy to navigate around this obstacle?" They treat life like an intense, highly interactive video game. If they fail a level, they don't sit in front of the screen crying about the game design. They analyze what went wrong, adapt their tactics, press the restart button, and approach the challenge from a completely new angle. Flexibility of mind is infinitely more valuable than a perfect plan. When you embrace the nonlinear nature of reality, you stop fearing uncertainty, and you start viewing it as a massive playground of hidden creative opportunities. Part 9. The Paradox of Choice and the Power of Intention. We live in a hyper-connected world that celebrates choice as the ultimate metric of human freedom. We have thousands of career paths to choose from, millions of digital products to purchase, endless streams of entertainment content to consume, and hundreds of potential lifestyles to adopt. But this explosion of choices has created a massive psychological trap known as the paradox of choice. Instead of making us feel free, having too many options completely paralyzes our ability to think straight. When you are faced with a massive menu of endless possibilities, your brain goes into a state of intense cognitive overload. You start overanalyzing every single option, terrified of making the wrong choice. If you choose career path A, you spend all your time worrying about whether career path B would have been more lucrative or fulfilling. If you start working on one business venture, the moment you face a minor challenge, your mind starts wandering to a shiny new business model that seems easier. This constant jumping from one option to another prevents you from ever building true momentum. You become a jack of all trades and a master of absolute nothing. To break free from this paralyzing trap, you must master the ultimate power of intention. Intention is the act of consciously choosing a specific direction, locking in your focus, and deliberately shutting the door on all other competing alternatives. Straight thinking requires you to ruthlessly eliminate choices, not accumulate them. Darius Foroux explains that you must decide exactly what matters to your life right now, and say an absolute, uncompromising no to everything else. If your primary intention for the next 12 months is to build a profitable online business, then you must decline invitations to join unrelated projects, stop consuming random entertainment content, and eliminate all distractions that do not directly serve that single focus. You must become completely comfortable with the concept of FOMO, the fear of missing out. Accept that you cannot read every single book, you cannot explore every single career, and you cannot go on every single vacation. True freedom is not the ability to do everything, it is the discipline to choose exactly what is vital to your personal purpose, and to involve yourself entirely in that choice without looking back. When you live your life with clear, unshakable intention, your mind calms down automatically. The background noise of endless options vanishes, and your cognitive energy becomes concentrated like a precise laser beam that can cut through any obstacle in its path. Part 10. Drawing the line. Stop thinking and start acting. Knowledge without execution is completely dead weight. You can read hundreds of self-help books, memorize every single cognitive bias, understand the deep philosophy of pragmatism, and analyze your life problems for thousands of hours. But if all that mental processing does not translate into a concrete, physical real-world action, you have accomplished absolutely nothing. You have simply transformed yourself into a highly sophisticated, hyper-educated overthinker. Darius Foroux warns us against the dangerous trap of using thinking as a tool for procrastination. Many highly intelligent people use continuous research, endless planning, and constant strategizing as a psychological shield to protect themselves from the raw, terrifying fear of failure and vulnerability. They tell themselves, "I am not ready to launch my business yet, I just need to read 3 more books and attend 1 more seminar." Or, "I am not ready to publish my creative work yet, I need to refine the strategy for another month." Let's be completely honest, you are not planning, you are simply terrified. You are using your mind to construct a beautiful, logical excuse to stay inside your comfortable shell of safety. But the universe does not reward you for what is sitting inside your head. The universe only rewards you for what you actually produce, launch, and execute in physical reality. To think straight, you must learn exactly how to draw an absolute, uncompromising line between productive planning and destructive overthinking. You must establish a strict deadline for your thinking process. Give yourself a fixed window of time to gather data, analyze the options, and formulate a basic strategy. The moment that deadline arrives, you must pull the plug on your mind completely. Stop thinking, step out of your head, and force your physical body to take the very first step of execution. If your strategy is 80% ready, that is more than enough to begin. The final 20% of true clarity can never be found in a sterile planning room anyway. It can only be discovered through the raw feedback loop of real-world action. When you start executing, you will face unexpected challenges, you will make mistakes, and you will gather real data. You can then use your straight thinking to adjust your course as you move forward. Action creates clarity. Thinking alone creates nothing but ghosts. Stop waiting for the perfect moment of absolute certainty. It does not exist. Jump into the arena, start executing with whatever tools you have right now, and let your actions drive your thoughts instead of letting your thoughts paralyze your actions.
Part 11. Intellectual Carpentry, the daily practice of journaling. You cannot expect to master the art of thinking straight by simply reading a book once or listening to a lecture. Your brain has been systematically conditioned by decades of social brainwashing, media consumption, and unmanaged emotional habits to default into a state of chaotic overthinking. The pathways of anxiety and mental static are deeply engraved into your neural architecture. To change those pathways, you must treat straight thinking as a highly practical, daily martial art. You must become an intellectual carpenter who continuously shapes, refines, and polishes their own mind. The absolute number one tool to achieve this level of daily mental craftsmanship is a consistent practice of journaling. Journaling is not a sentimental exercise designed to record your daily complaints or write down your artistic feelings. In the context of straight thinking, journaling is a highly structured, objective data management tool. It is the act of taking the chaotic, invisible, and terrifying thoughts floating around inside your head and trapping them on a physical piece of paper where they can be measured, analyzed, and controlled. When you keep your thoughts trapped inside your head, they appear massive, overwhelming, and infinitely complex. A tiny financial worry can expand within a few hours into a terrifying vision of absolute bankruptcy and homelessness. An unresolved conversation with a partner can transform into a conviction that your relationship is completely ruined. But the moment you take a pen, sit down in a quiet space, and force yourself to write those thoughts down word for word, something magical happens. The chaotic emotional energy drains out of the thoughts instantly. You look at the words on the paper, and you see them for what they truly are: simple, manageable challenges. Darius Foroux recommends a highly precise, daily journaling framework. Every single evening or first thing in the morning, open a blank notebook and answer 3 critical, clarifying questions. First, what did I accomplish today that actually worked and moved my life forward? Second, what useless thoughts or emotional assumptions hijacked my focus today, and how did I handle them? Third, what are the exact, concrete problems I need to solve tomorrow, and what is my very first actionable step? By writing down the answers to these questions every single day, you are actively training your brain to prioritize utility over noise. You are reinforcing the pragmatic filter, separating facts from assumptions on paper, and documenting your nonlinear progress over time. Your journal becomes your personal mental dashboard, allowing you to see exactly where your cognitive energy is bleeding out and how to instantly realign your focus. If you do not manage your thoughts on paper, your thoughts will manage your life by force. Part 12. The Sacred Gift of Inner Calm, the Action Blueprint. We have traveled through a massive, transformative psychological journey. We have unmasked the emotional traps of mental overload, deconstructed the core laws of pragmatism, learned how to separate facts from deceptive assumptions, and explore the absolute necessity of fast execution over endless overthinking. But as we reach the ultimate destination of this mental blueprint, let us look at the highest, most sacred prize of mastering your mind. The ultimate goal of straight thinking is not just to increase your business revenue, optimize your productivity, or achieve high social status. The true, ultimate purpose of thinking straight is to claim your birthright of absolute inner calm. Inner calm is the ultimate metric of human success. It is the ability to stand completely steady, centered, and peaceful in the exact center of a chaotic world. It means that when the economy faces a crisis, when your business encounters a massive roadblock, or when people around you are screaming in panic, your mind remains a steady, unshakable sanctuary of strategic clarity. You do not let the chaos of the external world penetrate your internal environment. You own yourself completely. To launch your personal transformation toward absolute mental liberation right now, here is your clear, step-by-step practical action blueprint based on complete wisdom of Think Straight. Step number 1, go on an immediate digital consumption detox. Stop reaching for your smartphone the very second you wake up in the morning. Give your brain at least 60 minutes of clean, quiet space to wake up naturally. Plan its day and establish its own intentions before you allow the chaotic noise of the internet to enter your consciousness. Protect your morning attention like a priceless jewel. Step number 2, run every single recurring worry through the pragmatic filter with absolute discipline. The very next time you find yourself stressing over a situation, pause, step back, and ask, is this thought actively solving a concrete problem or building true understanding? If the answer is no, label it clearly as a useless thought. Refuse to give it another second of your conscious energy and redirect your focus to a physical, real-world action. Step number 3, relentlessly separate facts from assumptions in your relationships and your work. Stop playing the dangerous game of mental mind reading. Stop interpreting the silences, the glances, or the unreturned messages of others through the lens of your personal insecurities. Stick entirely to verifiable evidence. If you do not have concrete facts, admit your ignorance, drop your assumptions, and focus entirely on what is real. Step number 4, embrace the nonlinear chaos of life with zero complaints. Drop your rigid, childish expectations that everything must go exactly according to your linear plan. Expect failures, welcome the detours, and treat every single roadblock as a creative tactical puzzle that you have the complete intellectual power to solve. Flexibility is your greatest strength. Step number 5, establish a daily journaling habit to clean your mental desktop. Spend 10 minutes every single night trapping your thoughts on a physical piece of paper. Separate the news from the noise, review your actions, lock in your intentions for the next day, and empty your brain completely so you can sleep with a deep sense of peace and security. Your mind is a highly advanced, infinitely powerful biological computer. Stop letting random emotional viruses, social conditioning, and useless worries run your operating system into the ground. Take the wheel of your own consciousness. Install the pragmatic filter. Slow down your decisions. Execute with absolute boldness, and guard your inner peace with your entire life. Change your thoughts. Master your attention. Step out of the chaotic internal storm once and for all, and build a clear, powerful, and majestic life that you are truly destined to live.